Hello everybody, this is Wolfgang von Latman from Chalice of Immortality.com. Hope everyone is doing great today. In this short video, I'd like to discuss sunlight, the importance of sunlight, and how you can get sunlight without burning yourself into a pile of ash. Okay? So, first of all, everybody should know this by now. The sunlight is vitally important to human existence. It is absolutely essential. And the scares of skin cancer have made our society more susceptible to diseases, less healthy, more susceptible to depression and mental illnesses of all kind, heart disease, stroke, cancer, sleep imbalances, hormonal imbalances such as low testosterone and high estrogen. All sorts of diseases have been shown to be contributed to a lack of sunlight and a lack of vitamin D. Okay, our human existence has been interrelated with the sun since the dawn of time. The entire Earth and planet relies entirely on sunlight, the positioning of the Earth compared to the sun. It is interrelated with the sun. Okay, what happens to the sun directly also happens to the Earth and its population, as above, so below. And so when human beings are not living, in harmony with the sun, I guess you say, in any way, shape, or form, we become unhealthy, we become imbalanced, and we decline. So, obviously the circadian rhythm and your sleep relies entirely on the sun, and that's very, very, very important to functioning optimally. And actually, I do feel like people who get less sleep but sleep according to the sun, to sunrise and sundown, probably function and feel a lot better and are a lot healthier than people who might get a lot of sleep, in a odd, abnormal cycle compared to the sun. But that's just an assumption and just a theory of mine, and it is supported by science. But I feel like you'd be better off getting 4 hours of sleep during the nighttime rather than, 8 hours of sleep during the daytime. I feel like the quality of sleep you get during the daytime is going to be so much better. So you get more health within a less period of time. Anyway, as far as sunlight is concerned, sunlight is very important for the synthesis of vitamin D, for metabolism of cholesterol. Okay, all of the diseases that are correlated with high cholesterol levels are also strongly correlated with sunlight and vitamin D levels. And we do know that vitamin D is synthesized from cholesterol. We know that the sun is interrelated with cholesterol levels and synthesis and metabolism of cholesterol. Whether it's dietary or it's in the body, it's just, the point is, cholesterol and the sun are very important, and people who don't get out in the sun tend to have higher cholesterol levels. So we know that the sunlight is very, very important, just at a baseline. So how much sunlight should you be getting per day? You should be getting at the very least 15 to 20 minutes of sunlight, of direct sunlight, during peak hours of the sun per day. And the less intensity of the sun, the more exposure, the more time you should be spending out there. But ideally around noon, around midday, when the sunlight is at its peak, that's usually when you're going to want to be out there. But our society has become fragile, weak, and wimps thanks to the modern, recommendations that make us fear sunlight and fear all these things that we probably shouldn't be. They make us think that the sun is automatically going to cause us skin cancer if we go out and get 30 minutes of sunlight a day. They scare us into putting lotion on, or sorry, it's the same thing, sunblock on, sunscreen on us every single time that we go out in the sun. And the problem is sunscreen blocks your absorption of vitamin D. This is a fact. This is why most people hardly get out in the sun. If they do get out in efficient sunlight, they're wearing sunblock. So how the fuck do you expect your body to actually metabolize vitamin D? How do you expect to not have a vitamin D deficiency if the only time you're out in the sun you're using sunblock? Okay, the UV rays are what your body needs to synthesize vitamin D. So sunblock blocks your body's ability to metabolize vitamin D, to create vitamin D from the sun. Sunblock, conventional sunblocks, but most sunblocks contain the active ingredients are actually create free radicals, which have been shown to increase the risk of cancer. They've been shown to create cancer in the body. Essentially, they're carcinogenic. You could think of it as. And the inactive compounds of sunscreen also are carcinogenic. Okay, the vast majority of lotions and potions and hygiene products people put on their skin, even the inactive ingredients in most medicated pharmaceutical, skin creams and whatnot. No matter what type of skin cream we're talking about, Neosporin and all of these things, antibiotic creams and lotions and psoriasis medications and things like this, these all have carcinogens in them as well. Okay, so it's kind of funny. We want to avoid skin cancer by putting on sunscreen to avoid the sun, but the sunscreen that we're putting on to avoid skin cancer actually causes skin cancer. So it's really stupid. It's like fighting fire with fire. But let's look at some facts here. Number one, our body needs sunlight in order to survive. Okay, it's absolutely essential. And from the dawn of time, from the dawn of man, human beings, ancient humans, used to walk 50 to 100 miles a day, as when we were nomads and whatnot, out in the sun. So our body adapted to sunlight and long distance endurance exercises, which are two things we know are vitally important for our existence and increase our health. And it's what all the unhealthy people are not doing these days. And we see with decrease in these activities, we see an increase in diseases. So humans have tolerated the sun for centuries, but now we're all of a sudden afraid, and everyone can't tolerate the sun all of a sudden. So I forgot where I was going with this. I was going somewhere, but here's another. Oh yeah, so we're looking at the facts. So we're meant to have sunlight. The sunlight has actually been shown to decrease chances of cancer, decrease cancer rates, decrease all-cause mortality. Vitamin D is essential for preventing these diseases. Most people are deficient in vitamin D. They're deficient in sunlight, but all-cause mortality has gone up. Heart disease has gone up. Depression's gone up. Hormonal-related disorders, cancer, all these things have gone up. And despite the fact that people are using sunblock and are scared of the sun. And we know that we need the sunlight to prevent these diseases that everyone is getting. So, we're meant to be in the sun. All-cause mortality goes down with sunlight. The sunlight is vitally important. It's an essential nutrient, you could think of it as. Sunlight is vitamin D, you could think of it as. It produces serotonin. It helps to increase the health of our eyes. People don't know this. I'm not talking about sun gazing. I'm just talking about, in general, UV rays actually promote health of the eyes. You see everyone walk around with glasses and things, and I can guarantee you most of these people with glasses probably don't get out in the sun very often. As a matter of fact, now that I bring it up, most of the people I know that are constantly out in the sun and have been their entire life don't seem to need glasses, including my dad, actually, which is interesting. He has great vision. That's just something I thought about. But so, there's a lot of evidence that the sun is a great thing. Now let's look at sunblock. Sunblock, inactive ingredients have been shown to contribute to cancer. The active ingredient creates free radical damage, which causes cancer. And it's protecting against something that is very beneficial for preventing cancer. So to me, it sounds like sunblock is the enemy. So there's that. So we know by looking at these facts, sunlight is good and sunblock is bad. However, the nuance is that the more time you spend out in the sun, the more likely you are to burn. So we have to break this down and understand some reality here. So obviously right now, if you say, oh, fuck the sunscreen, I'm gonna go out in the sun and get a nice tan, and sun's good for me. This guy Wolfgang from childhood7immortality.com on YouTube told me the sun is good for me, so I'm just gonna go out. I'm gonna burn myself to death. Like, no, that's really stupid. Please don't do that. Please don't do that. Because I tried that once because of my stubborn ways, and it wasn't that bad. I was very pink and red for the next week or two, and I had fucking blisters on my bald head. It was really bad. I should have worn a hat, but it was a dumb experiment, I guess. So you have to increase your exposure to sunlight gradually, and there is a very powerful natural sunscreen that works very, very effectively, and it also it prevents the sun from burning you just enough to where you can still absorb some of the vitamin D. And that natural sunscreen is coconut oil. Okay, and if you think oh, it's an oil, it's going to burn my skin, that's not true. You have to understand different fats burn differently, and coconut oil has been used for long time as sunscreen for thousands of years, and people use it now, and I'm reading comments all the time about how people use coconut oil as sunscreen. It works amazingly, and people are surprised that they never heard of it before. So you can thank mass marketing and large corporations for keeping this, kind of like promoting their own bullshit and keeping the coconut oil under the radar. Okay, so simple as coconut oil. Okay, if you need sunscreen, use coconut oil, but just realize that the body naturally adapts to sunlight over time. Because you've been using sunscreen for your entire life, your body has been relying on sunscreen to prevent it from the sun, and you've never even begin to get your body adapted to the sun. And we're meant to be adapted to the sun. By the age of 20, you should have been at least partially adapted to the sun. And since you haven't been, you've been using this artificial chemical isolated compound concoction that promotes disease in the body to prevent you against something you're naturally meant to endure. Now your body's like fucked up. It's like, what the fuck? So anyway, if you enter the sunlight gradually, you should probably start off with 15-20 minutes of sunlight. You can use a little, if you've never done this before without sunscreen, you can go into the sun for 15-20 minutes, put a little bit of coconut oil on the areas that you're concerned about, and wear a hat and some protective clothing. But I encourage everybody, depending on who you are, if you're an older person who's new to this, your heat tolerance is going to be lower, and you're probably going to want to put some coconut oil on yourself to help protect you. If you get sick frequently and you're constantly coming down with colds and flus and things, you have a lowered immune system. Okay, for whatever reason you're not healthy. Okay, if you get sick more than 3 times a year, you're not in an optimally healthy state. Okay, it's not normal to be sick more than 3 times a year. Don't let other people brainwash you otherwise. So you probably have a lowered immune system, but you know, it's not that bad. Unless you get sick anywhere from 6 to 10 times per year, then you probably need to put some coconut oil on yourself because your body's not very healthy. You probably have a vitamin D deficiency. It's probably why you're not so healthy, in addition to many other factors, of course. So, and I have plenty of videos on explaining how to be healthy, so you should check those out. Search them up on YouTube. So gradually increase your exposure, 15 to 30 minutes. Put some coconut oil on yourself if necessary. And then over time, increase the time you spend in the sun by, 2 minutes per week or so. Gradually increase your natural tolerance for the sunlight. And over time, your body will be able to tolerate more sun. It'll absorb more vitamin D, and you'll develop a tan. Okay, depending on what your skin color is too. Obviously, the darker your skin, the easier you'll be able to tolerate sun. And us white people. I mean, me personally, I'm white as fuck. When I was a child and I used to use sunscreen, without sunscreen I get burnt pretty damn easily. But when I grew older, I never cared about all that nonsense. For 4 years straight, I'd be out in the sun every single day. I was skateboarding. I was wrestling with the neighborhood kids, playing around, and I was running every day at one point. I was always out in the sun, and I hardly ever got sunburned from what I remember. At first I would get pink and I would get burnt, but I'd be out in the sun for hours at a time, and I would be sunburned, but I enjoyed playing outside with my friends so much I didn't care. So the first couple weeks was hell. I was always sunburned and whatnot. But after, about 4 months of being out in the sun every day, I think it was earlier than that, but after a matter of, a couple months of being out in the sun every single day, my body got used to it, and I was able to just be out in the sun every single day for long periods of time with no sunburn. Okay, unless it was one of those abnormally hot, really sunny summer days. And you have to remember, it depends on where you live too. If you're in a really extreme sunny area, you can build tolerance if you can become used to that more often. But wherever you're living, you become adapted to whatever stimulus you're presenting to yourself. So if it's like a really extreme sunlight that you endure every single day, you're likely to build a tolerance over time. If you are, just like exercise, the heavier weight that you lift, the heavier weight you're going to be able to lift. But you can't just expect to deadlift 700 pounds the first day that you try lifting. So, this gradual exposure over time, like I said, I was able to endure about, extreme sun for long periods of time for about 4 years until I stopped going out in the sun. I started to go to the gym more often. I stopped walking. I stopped taking the bus. I stopped riding my bike. I hardly got outside. And 4 years of non-sunlight, of not being in the sun, and I go out to a concert with my girlfriend with my bald head, thinking that I could just be out there forever without a hat and whatnot. I got a horrible blister all over my head. It was horrible. It was pussing and everything. I looked like I don't want to say what I looked like. It was disgusting. Oh, damn, that's disgusting. It was horrible. But, obviously, if that was me back in the time where I spent outside in the sun every single day, I would have been fine. Probably would have benefited from a hat still. But the fact that the fact that I spent so much time indoors for so long, it's like if you don't use it, you lose it. So I didn't use my body's adaptation to the sunlight, and so boom, I got fucked when I went back out in the sun. So, in order to prevent yourself from being fucked, you wear a condom. No, but seriously, what I'm saying, everyone probably knows already. What I'm saying right now is, God damn it. I only got 3 hours of sleep last night. I went out for coffee with my family this morning, so my brain's not functioning optimally. But you know what the fuck I'm saying. Skin cancer could possibly happen. I mean, obviously, if I could be out in the sun, the blazing sun, at a concert for 3 hours without a hat on my bald head, and I get a fucking blister, I mean, you know, obviously, maybe that was free radical damage, and that can cause cancer to my head. Maybe it's only in people with lowered immune systems. But, you know, if you go out in the sun and you're not adapted for it, and you get really sunburned, you get blisters all over yourself, without sunblock, of course, then you stayed out in the sun too long. So as long as you do this in moderation, you're not going to get burnt too bad. You're not going to get blisters. You're not going to get cancer. So, you know, this whole thing is a matter of rational thought. People who think they have to use sunscreen all the time, and you know, if you know they think that I'm crazy, they're irrational, and they're not taking the time to actually think about this. You know, we know biological science. This is one thing I tell you for certain is true. Our body does adapt to whatever stimulus we put it under. You know, exercise, different diets, different tastes. Your taste buds adapt. Addictions, all sorts of habits too. Recording videos every day is a habit that my body adapts to, and it becomes natural. The greater level of stimulus, the more videos I produce during the day, the more that it starts to be natural. So your body adapts to the sun, it adapts to everything. Stress, the way you think, it's all a matter of adaptation. The problem though is that people tend to put themselves through way too much, way too soon. You got to gradually adapt to the sunlight. And if you have a compromised immune system, if you're you know, old or anything of that nature, a little bit of coconut oil would be a good idea. But remember, coconut oil is going to be a lot better for you than, you know, artificial sunscreen, and even so-called natural sunscreens, because zinc oxide is the main ingredient that they use, and that's a natural organic compound. So remember, organic, you know, isn't necessarily good. It's not necessarily healthy just because it's organic, but you get the picture. So use some coconut oil if you have to, and get your body to adapt. This has been Wolfgang von Latman from chaliceofimmortality.com. Thank you so much for tuning in this far. I appreciate all of you. Leave your questions and comments down below. I read all my comments. I love you guys. Have a good day.